You are watching this because you are bleeding, and they are silent. You gave them everything, your patience, your empathy, your nervous system. You offered them a safe harbor. You saw their flaws, you saw their fears, and you chose to stay. And in return, they handed you a betrayal so cold, so calculated, it left you questioning your own sanity. Perhaps they cheated. Perhaps they blindsided you with a sudden discard. Or perhaps they simply faded away into a cowardly silence, refusing to give you closure. However it happened, the result is the same. You are left sitting in the wreckage of a future you built together, while they are already out the door. And now comes the hardest part, the part that keeps you awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling. You look at their social media, you hear whispers from mutual friends, or you just feel it in the empty air between you. They seem fine. Actually, it is worse than fine. They look relieved. They look happy. They are moving on, going to parties, maybe even flaunting a new partner, while you can barely find the strength to get out of bed. And in that dark space, you ask the universe, where is the justice? Where is the karma? How can a human being cause this much destruction in someone else's soul and just walk away without a single scratch? I need you to listen to me very carefully. Take a deep breath. What you are looking at is not peace. What you are witnessing is not happiness. It is a neurological illusion. It is survival mode. It is profound, devastating dissociation. We have this romanticized idea of karma. We think of it as an instant cosmic lightning bolt meant to punish the wicked and avenge the brokenhearted. But when you are dealing with a severe avoidant, someone whose entire personality structure is built on running away from intimacy, karma does not come from the sky. Karma comes from within. It comes from their own biology, psychological karma. The karma of attachment theory is much darker. It is much slower, and it is absolutely inescapable. Right now, you are looking at them and thinking they have won. You think they got away with murder, but the brain does not forget. The nervous system keeps the score. The avoidant who betrayed you is not currently experiencing joy. They are experiencing the complete and total shutdown of their emotional processing center. A psychological circuit breaker has tripped inside their mind to protect them from the crushing weight of their own guilt and their own shame. But a circuit breaker cannot stay off forever. In this deep dive, we are going to drop the illusions. We are going to look into the mirror, not your mirror, but theirs. We are going to dissect the exact neuroscience and psychology of what happens to the avoidant mind after they betray someone who truly loved them. You will understand why they act so cold. You will understand why the consequences take time. And most importantly, you will learn the 3 undeniable psychological signs that their emotional debt is finally being collected. Because right now, they are running on borrowed time. Their emotional credit card is maxed out. They cannot ghost their own subconscious, and the bill is about to arrive. To understand why they walked away so easily, you have to stop looking at their heart. You have to look at their brain. We need to talk about the neuroscience of avoidance suppression, because what you are witnessing is not a lack of feeling. It is a highly evolved, deeply ingrained trauma response. It is a biological lockdown. When a person with a secure or anxious attachment style goes through a breakup, especially one involving betrayal or deep hurt, their brain reacts like a house on fire. The amygdala, the brain's emotional processing center and smoke alarm, lights up. It floods the nervous system with panic, grief, and pain. If you are an empath or someone with an anxious attachment style, you know exactly what this feels like. You felt the fire. You cried. You could not eat. You obsessed over every detail. You let the pain wash over you, wave after agonizing wave. But the avoidant brain is wired entirely differently. When they betrayed you, when they saw the devastation in your eyes, their amygdala also fired. Deep down, the primitive part of their brain registered the threat. It registered the guilt. It registered the profound shame of being a person who causes harm. But here is where the split happens. Instead of allowing that emotional fire to burn, their brain deployed a massive instant flood of inhibitory signals from the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the logical executive part of the brain. In an avoidant, it acts like a ruthless dictator. The moment the pain of guilt and shame threatened to surface, their prefrontal cortex slammed the heavy steel vault door shut on their amygdala. In psychology, we call these deactivating strategies. But in neuroscience, it is active aggressive suppression. Their brain literally severed the connection between their conscious awareness and their emotional reality. They did not process the betrayal. They amputated it. This is why they seem so incredibly calm. This is why they can look at you with dead eyes, speak to you in a monotone voice, and pack their bags as if they are merely sorting laundry. You are looking for a soul and you are meeting a firewall, but you must understand a fundamental law of physics and biology. Energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed or stored, burying a massive emotional trauma. Burying the guilt of destroying someone who loved you is not a passive act. It requires an immense continuous amount of physiological energy. Imagine holding a giant beach ball underwater. You can do it. You can smile while you do it. You can look perfectly normal to anyone standing on the shore. But beneath the surface, your muscles are burning. Your arms are shaking. You are expending massive amounts of energy just to keep that ball from erupting to the surface. That is the avoidance daily existence. They are living in a state of chronic low-grade fight or flight. Their nervous system is quietly flooded with cortisol, the stress hormone, because keeping the vault door closed takes everything they have. They are not at peace. They are numb. And numbness is not the absence of emotion. Numbness is the active, exhausting suppression of overwhelming emotion. While you are actively processing your grief, crying your tears, feeling your anger, and slowly healing, they are doing nothing but holding their breath. You are letting the poison out of your system. They are swallowing it whole, locking it in their gut, and pretending they are not slowly drowning from the inside. And this biological reality, this exhausting suppression, is exactly what sets the stage for the psychological karma that is waiting for them, because the brain can only hold its breath for so long. So, you sit there, you watch the days turn into weeks, and you wait for the universe to balance the scales. You want the karma to hit them instantly. You want them to wake up tomorrow, realize the magnitude of what they destroyed, and fall to their knees. But they do not. In fact, the first few weeks or even months after they betray you, they look absolutely invincible. This is the most agonizing phase for you. This is where you question everything. You ask yourself, did I mean anything at all? Was it all a lie? Listen to me. It was not a lie, but you are fundamentally misunderstanding the timeline of an avoidance grief. You and the avoidant are operating on two completely reversed psychological clocks. When a breakup happens, your trauma response is immediate. Your system crashes. Your dopamine and oxytocin levels plummet, throwing you into severe, agonizing emotional withdrawal. But the avoidant, they do not crash. They experience something clinical and predictable. In attachment theory, we call it the relief stage, and this stage is the ultimate illusion. To understand the relief stage, you have to understand how their brain viewed the relationship. To an avoidant, true intimacy, deep vulnerability, and being completely seen is terrifying. It feels like engulfment. It feels like losing their identity, even if you were the safest, most loving partner in the world. Their broken attachment system perceived your love as a heavy, suffocating demand. So, when they betrayed you, when they finally severed the tie and ran, their brain did not register a tragic loss. Their brain registered a successful escape. The moment they got away, the primitive part of their brain that was terrified of intimacy suddenly felt safe again. The perceived threat of closeness was gone. And what does the brain do when it survives a perceived threat? It rewards itself. Their brain releases a massive intoxicating flood of dopamine, a euphoric chemical high. This is why they look so incredibly energetic right now. This is why they are suddenly posting pictures from clubs, picking up new hobbies, or seemingly thriving in their new life. You are looking at a person who is chemically high on the illusion of freedom. They are confusing relief with true happiness. But relief is simply the absence of pressure. It is not the presence of joy. It is not the presence of deep human fulfillment. Imagine carrying a heavy, suffocating weight on your chest for years. If you suddenly throw it off, you feel incredibly light. You feel like you can fly. But you are not actually flying. You are just no longer being crushed. That is the avoidance dopamine high. They think they have found peace. They convince themselves that the problem was you. They think the relationship was the cage, and now that they are out, their life is suddenly perfect. But here is the brutal truth about dopamine, and the inescapable truth of the human psyche. Dopamine metabolizes. The chemical high always fades. The sparkling novelty of freedom always wears off. And when that happens, the silence sets in. The relief stage has a strict expiration date. It might take 3 weeks. It might take 3 months. For highly severe avoidants who are masters of distraction, it might even take 6 months. But the biological clock is ticking. The heavy steel vault door inside their mind, the one keeping the guilt, the shame, and the horrifying reality of their betrayal locked away, is starting to rust. The hinges are groaning under the pressure. They stretch the psychological rubber band as far as it could go by running away from you. But you cannot run from your own subconscious. You cannot ghost your own nervous system. The further they run, the harder the snapback is going to be. Karma is not ignoring them. Karma is simply waiting for their anesthetic to wear off. Sign #1, the collapse of the perfect distraction. The relief stage does not last. The dopamine high always crashes. And when it does, the avoidant brain panics. This brings us to the very first undeniable sign that psychological karma is taking root. Sign number 1, the desperate search for and the inevitable collapse of the perfect distraction. When the initial euphoria of running away from you begins to fade, the silence of their own life starts to creep in. And for someone who has just committed a profound betrayal, silence is the ultimate enemy. If they sit still, if they allow the quiet moments to exist, the heavy steel vault door inside their mind will begin to open. The suppressed guilt, the memory of your tears, the undeniable reality of their own toxic behavior, it will all flood their conscious mind. They cannot let that happen. Their nervous system cannot handle the weight of their own actions. So, they have to keep moving. They have to manufacture noise. They have to find an anesthetic. Enter the distraction. For some avoidants, this looks like sudden workaholism. They will throw themselves into their career working 80 hours a week, so they never have to be alone with their thoughts. For others, it is the gym or traveling frantically or a sudden desperate need to be surrounded by superficial friends at a crowded bar every single night. But the most common distraction, the most predictable textbook move of an avoidant running from their own karma, the rebound relationship. You see them with someone new, incredibly fast. They post pictures, they look radiant. They want the world, and subconsciously they want you to believe they have upgraded. They want to prove that the problem was always you. And now that they have found the right person, everything is effortless. But let us look under the hood of this illusion. Let us look at the neuroscience. This new person is not a partner. This new person is a human painkiller. The avoidant brain loves the beginning of a new relationship because it requires zero real intimacy. It is all surface level. There is no history. There is no conflict. There is no heavy emotional expectation. It is a pure, unadulterated hit of external validation. It is a fresh supply of dopamine to keep the vault door shut. But remember the law of biology. You always build a tolerance to painkillers. Eventually, the distraction starts to demand something real. The shiny new rebound partner starts asking for consistency. They start wanting deep connection. They start asking the same perfectly normal questions you used to ask. And the moment that happens, the illusion shatters. The avoidance brain suddenly recognizes the new person not as an anesthetic, but as a threat. The exact same suffocating feeling they ran away from with you comes rushing back. The distraction has collapsed. You did the hard work. You sat in the excruciating silence. You felt the pain of their betrayal. You processed it, and you slowly healed your nervous system. You faced your demons. They ran from theirs. They tried to outrun the pain by jumping into a new bed, or a new job, or a new persona. But you cannot outrun a ghost that lives inside your own head. The collapse of the distraction is the moment karma finally knocks on their door. It happens when they are driving home alone. It happens at 2 a.m. when the party is over, the alcohol wears off, and they are staring at the ceiling in the dark. The distraction failed. The noise stopped, and for the first time since they betrayed you, the silence is deafening. In that silence, their brain no longer has the energy to suppress the truth. The numbness cracks, and the first agonizing drop of regret, the undeniable realization that they are the architect of their own misery, begins to bleed through. The distraction is gone, the noise has faded, and now, the avoidant is left with the one thing they fear more than anything else in this world, themselves. In psychology, there is a very famous, very relentless concept. It is called the return of the repressed. You can bury a feeling. You can deny a memory. You can shove your guilt, your shame, and your betrayal deep into the darkest basement of your subconscious. You can lock the heavy steel vault door. But feelings are not dead objects. Feelings are living biological energy. When you bury emotions alive, they do not simply die. They mutate, they fester, and eventually, they claw their way back up to the surface. For months, their prefrontal cortex has been working overtime. It has been burning massive amounts of physiological energy to keep the vault door shut, keeping the reality of what they did to you out of their conscious awareness. But the brain is like a battery, and that battery is finally running out of charge. When an avoidant reaches this stage of their karma, you will not necessarily see them crying over a photograph of you. That is too direct. That requires too much vulnerability. Instead, the emotional leakage happens in the shadows. It happens when their conscious defenses are completely down. It happens in the middle of the night. They jolt awake at 3 a.m. Their heart is violently pounding against their ribs. Their chest is tight. They are drenched in a cold sweat. A sudden, overwhelming spike of cortisol and adrenaline has just flooded their bloodstream. They look around the dark, empty room. There is no physical threat. There is no logical reason for this panic. But their nervous system is screaming as if they are in mortal danger. Why does this happen? Because while their logical, conscious mind was asleep, the guards were down. And the suppressed guilt, the unresolved, terrifying shame of the pain they caused you, slipped out of the vault and struck their nervous system like a bolt of lightning. They will wake up and call it stress. They will blame it on their job. They will blame it on something they ate. They will rationalize it in 100 different ways to avoid admitting the absolute truth. But the body keeps the score. You processed your grief in the light of day. You let it shatter you. You cried until you had nothing left, and then you slowly put the pieces back together. You paid the emotional toll up front. They refused to pay it. So now, their unexpressed grief is hunting them in the dark. This return of the repressed does not just happen in their sleep. It bleeds into their waking life as severe generalized anxiety, a constant low-grade sense of dread that they cannot shake. They might be driving in their car, completely fine, and suddenly a random trigger hits them. A phrase someone uses at work, a specific color, a song on the radio, for a fraction of a second. The memory of you pierces their armor. If you or I remembered a lost love, we might feel a wave of profound sadness. But the avoidant feels a sudden sharp wave of psychological nausea, a physical visceral rejection of the memory, because to remember you is to be forced to remember what they senselessly destroyed. To remember your warmth is to violently confront their own coldness. They are haunted, not by a supernatural ghost. They are haunted by the amputated parts of their own emotional reality. They betrayed you to escape the pressure of intimacy. They ran away to feel safe. But now, the unbearable pressure is coming from inside their own mind. They are trapped in a nervous system that is actively rebelling against the lies they have been telling themselves. The numbness is cracking, and the terror is bleeding through. Sign #2, the paradoxical panic of absolute isolation. They got exactly what they wanted. They wanted you to stop asking for their time. They wanted you to stop asking for emotional depth. They wanted the expectations to disappear. They betrayed you, they walked away, and they finally achieved the ultimate prize they were fighting for. Absolute, undeniable independence. But there is a cruel, deeply ironic joke hidden inside the human nervous system. And this brings us to the second sign that psychological karma has finally arrived. Sign number 2, the paradoxical panic of absolute isolation. To understand this panic, we have to look at human evolution. We are biologically wired for connection. We are mammals. For thousands of years, to be separated from the tribe meant certain death. Our brains literally equate prolonged, profound isolation with a threat to our physical survival. When you love someone, your nervous system regulates itself through their presence. When they betrayed you and left you in the cold, your nervous system went into shock. You felt the primal terror of abandonment. But you did something incredible with that terror. You sat in the fire. You learned how to self-soothe. You reconnected with friends. You rebuilt your community. And most importantly, you became your own safe harbor. You filled the void with authentic healing. The avoidant did the exact opposite. They chased the void. They thought the void was freedom. For a long time while you were together, they used you as a psychological scapegoat. This is a very dark, very unconscious mechanism of the avoidant mind. Whenever they felt anxious, whenever they felt an internal sense of inadequacy or pressure, they pointed their finger at you. If they felt suffocated, it was because you were too needy. If they felt stressed, it was because you were asking for too much. You were the perfect excuse for their internal discomfort. But now, you are gone. The rebound relationship has collapsed. The distractions have stopped working. They are standing alone in the center of their own life. There is no one left to blame. There is no one left to push away. And suddenly, the silence of that isolation is no longer peaceful. It is terrifying. Imagine them sitting on their couch on a Friday night. The TV is on, but they are not watching it. They pick up their phone. They scroll through hundreds of contacts. They have coworkers. They have drinking buddies. They have superficial acquaintances. But as they scroll, a cold, sinking realization hits their chest. Out of all those names, there is not a single soul they can call and simply say, "I am hurting." There is no one who truly knows them, because to be known, you have to be vulnerable. And they have spent their entire life building a fortress to keep vulnerability out. They successfully built a fortress so strong that nothing can get in to hurt them. But now they realize they are locked inside, and they are suffocating. This is the paradoxical panic. They ran away from your love because it felt like a cage. But now they realize that the real cage, the true prison, was their own mind all along. The emptiness they are feeling right now is not a normal loneliness. It is a psychological void. It is the crushing weight of their own emotional starvation. They wanted a life with no demands. But a life with no demands is a life with no depth. A life with no expectations is a life with no meaning. They look at the absolute isolation they fought so ruthlessly to achieve, the isolation they sacrificed you to get, and they finally understand the horrifying truth. Safe just means empty. And in that overwhelming emptiness, the panic rises. The nervous system starts ringing the primal alarm bells. The profound, desperate need for